since I was a little child, joining the peace conversations, whenever I said, well, in 1948, and then they will tell me, oh, you can't talk about 48.
My voice wasn't deleted. My voice was shaping the discourse there in the conference.
Welcome to Women Ending War, the podcast where Palestinian and Israeli women talk about partnerships for peace, real solutions, and ideas for crafting a new world.
It's where we express our pain, anger, dreams, creativity, and vision, where hope is a conscious choice. معاكم أميرة مسلم.
I'm Elana Sztokman. Thanks for joining us.
مرحبا إلانا, مرحبا أميرة.
Shalom, salam.
Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I am so excited this conversation and really envisioning it's a very important conversation, especially between Palestinian women who are based in Bethlehem, and you, Elana, a Jewish Israeli, and me as Palestinian citizen of Israel. And mainly I wanted this conversation after the peace summit that happened in Israel last Thursday, which I think it was somehow a remarkable event, and it really raised a lot of moving thoughts and emotions among the three of us because of different reasons. And it raised also a lot of question about, does this event bring a light of hope that something is evolving in the peace building field between Palestinians and Israelis? Thus, there is a hope that now the peace building conversation, the conversation between Palestinians and Israelis about what peace means, it's different. It contained new terminology. It contained the new partners. It contained a crowd of people that calling for peace in different language.
Yeah.
And there was about, I guess, 4,000 people in the crowd, Palestinians and Jewish Israelis, all of them calling for peace, but from new terminology this time, which for me, it was so moving to watch it from my small village near of Haifa. And somehow I regret it that I wasn't part of these moments to embrace the cooperation between Palestinians and Jews in Israel with a new commitment for a different future. So I wanted to hear from you, Amira, and that you spoke there by video, and also Elana, you were there. How was it for you? And to take us a little bit from each of us, how we see this evolving character of peace building between Palestinians and Israelis, and what was moving for us.
Yes, I honestly, when last year when I watched it on the TV, on social media, I was like, oh wow, it's nice, but it was too much slogans. It was too much peace, love, yalla, we want to love each other. We don't want to kill each other. Okay, but not everybody wants to kill everybody. And when I got invited this year, I was very hesitant to even participate with them. And I waited for the Zoom meeting that they did to prepare us and to talk about the event and what is going to happen. And when I joined the Zoom, I found out that the Zoom is specifically for protective presence. And this, the first sign that got my attention that, okay, we're talking differently than last year. Yeah. When we joined the Zoom, then, the producer and the people who were there started talking about what will happen and how they will put it on the screens and what is the language. And that's where I said, okay, I'm joining. Until that moment, I wasn't sure. And I was also, I didn't want my people to see me as a traitor, to talk about peace in the midst of this chaos, this tragedy, this, I didn't want to betray my people. So I was very careful into accepting or not. Then the language they used and how they will put it on the screens and what they will put in the screens. And then we asked them what each one of us will be saying. And then they said, whatever you want to say, just say. And that was another moment, because since I was a little child joining the peace conversations, whenever I said, well, in 1948, and then they will tell me, oh, you can't talk about 48. But hey, guys, this is my narrative. This is my history. This is my story. So how can I not speak about the 48? This is the base of our, you know, our Nakba, you know. And then, and because our so-called partners back then, when I was younger, they would see just the number 48 as if I am saying to my Israeli friends that you don't have the right to exist, which is not true. When I mention my history, it doesn't exclude your history or your story or your existence. So that's what happened. And when I prepared the paragraph that I will be saying and speaking, I spoke very honestly about the situation in the West Bank. What does it mean, settler violence? How it is protected, sustained, and contained by the government, the current government, of course, without accountability and so on. And when I gave the text, then after a week, we did the video here in Beit Jala. They came, all the team from Tel Aviv, and we made the video here. And they didn't remove nothing. They just removed few words because of it was long. It was around 7 minutes of a speech, and they just shortened it. But they didn't remove the most important words of like occupied West Bank, current government doesn't represent you, if this settler violence, if that, and I was so happy that to be able to stand, even not physically present, but to stand.
Oh my God, you were present.
Yeah.
You were massive. You were on this massive screen and so present.
Yes, so I was like, even if I'm like not physically present, but I was able to deliver our message, our suffering, it's time to khalas, enough,
And people cheered you. The room absolutely cheered.
Yeah, because
they cheered.
Yeah, because people are thirsty, I think, to hear this kind of calls. Not only yalla, let's do peace. Okay, good, great,
they are thirsty. They are thirsty to have a Palestinian partner, and to have Palestinian partner that feels that his voice is part of shaping the peace building in Israel-Palestine. What you said is that my voice wasn't deleted. My voice was shaping the discourse there in the conference, even if you weren't there in person. And your voice means talking about the occupation, talking about the oppression, talking about settler violence. And this is part of what we have to face when we are talking about peace, not through slogans. Okay?
Yes, and also the most important part in my speech was to call the Israelis to take responsibility and go to take action. Because enough, I'm a leftist, I'm a good, I want peace, I love you, let's eat hummus and drink coffee together. But then on the ground, they are not doing nothing, nothing to stop what is happening. I can't stop the occupation, because if I'm speaking up in public, I could be put in danger, I could be imprisoned and so on. So I feel like the call for Israelis to come to the field and see with their own eyes was heard. And exactly this week, on Friday, there is like a coalition from the different Israeli organizations from all around Israel. They are joining forces and coming to the field for a tour. Fine.
But solidarity, we are part of it, our organization as well. It's Solidarity Day by a coalition of several organizations, the Israeli organization and Palestinians, that going in order to be in solidarity with Palestinians in the West Bank because of the expansion of settler terrorism and settler violence that is also backed by the State of Israel and by the army. So they are taking actions that showing also collective responsibility, and it's different.
I want to go, by the way.
Yes, on Friday. I will send her the invitation.
But your speech was very moving for me as well, and maybe for Elana, because when I asked you what were the moving moments, and you said Amira's speech.
Amira's speech was definitely one of the most moving moments. First of all, because I know you and I love you, and I want you. I want to see you in your power. It was powerful.
Yes.
I'm saying you were there in all of your power, and the room supported you.
Yes.
And that felt newish. You know what I'm saying? Not new because like you're not, just new for the crowd a little
Yes.
bit. And yeah, so that was really moving. And also before you spoke, there were a lot of speakers, also honest. There was a lot of honesty.
Yes,
There were
honesty.
people talking about real pain. You know, from people calling in from Gaza. You know, one woman, I think, wait, what was the man? I don't remember, talked about 40 family members
Yeah.
being killed. And I've heard that story, that type of story many times, you know. Like, it's just incomprehensible. I mean, even Eva, you know, Eva Dalak, we were talking once about how, you know, in Gaza, it's going to be so hard to rebuild with all the rubble. The rubble is difficult to remove because it's got detonative devices in it and it's got dead bodies. And she said to me, yeah, a lot of the dead bodies are my family members, you know, and it was like,
yeah.
this is this unbearable reality. And what was interesting for me at this event is that was front and center. That was open, like you were talking about the honesty, is that, and it wasn't just one person, it was another and another and another. People, and you know what was really inspiring for me? You know, you had this woman, this young woman, a photographer, who talked about losing her brother and sister-in-law, and then another brother and sister-in-law, and with a new baby, and they had just gotten pregnant. It was this heart-wrenching story. And after she talked about all of that and how hard it was for her family, she said, but I believe in peace.
Yeah.
I believe in a different future. And I thought to myself, how can anybody not, you know, fall into her arms, you know, and say, whatever you want.
Exactly.
Whatever you want, I'm here for you. How? So, you know, for me, now, you know, again, I've heard a lot of these stories already, but there was something so like, just like goes straight into your heart. You know, you're hearing about people with so much pain, and she has the right to be angry. You know, if she would come and she said, you know, I just want revenge, I'd be like, you know, I understand you. I'm not gonna. I understand somebody like just wants revenge and is full of hate and anger, and I understand. But she wasn't that, and nobody up there was that. They were like, no, we have to get past these pains. We have to understand that many people on all sides and in all corners many are facing pains, and there were also hostage families there, and you know, people who also talked about difficult experiences from October 7th and Anova and all of that. People coming with their real difficult pains that are going to be with them forever. Loss, unbelievable loss.
Yeah.
Talking from that place and saying, but I believe in a different future. We can do this. We're all human beings at the end of the day. We're all human beings. We all want the same thing. We all want a normal life. And if we can just recognize that in each other, we can create a different reality. That was...
It's I see it a little bit from a different aspect as well. I guess just to go back to Amira, you felt the space of taking agency. Like this conference allowed Palestinians not to be marginalized from shaping what peace means between Palestinians and the Israelis. You took agency, and in order, because the space was there to allow your voice to come. So when your voice came, it speaks about occupation, oppression, and all this, and also allowed Palestinians from Gaza to speak about the genocide, to speak about the pain, the results of militarism and war that trying to shape our consciousness that there is no way between Palestinians and Israelis, that it's zero-sum game, okay? That either us, either or them. But this conference allowed us all together to say, we are not accepting this discourse of zero-sum game. We think there is a different possibility. But at the same time, not to ignore the pain that happened, the genocide that happening, the massacre of 7th of October. I mean, we are not ignoring the pain, but despite the pain, there is a lot of things needed to be asked. Where our responsibility for the future and our accountability of what happens in the past. But at the same time, there was a common voice of us. We are committed and want to shape a different future toward our children and our people. We want to have a shared and different future despite the pain. And it means it also breaking this discourse that there is no partner in the other side. That I was telling both of you, what for me was so moving, it's because this discourse that has been shaped within Israelis and within Palestinians. Whenever you go to Palestinian people or wherever you go to Israeli talking about peace, the first thing that they will say, there is no partner in the other side. There are a small group of people that wanted peace. They want equality for us, like Palestinians, and they are right. But this conference showed us that the people who want peace, and different kind of peace, peace without oppression, which peace without having one people controlling our people, other people, a peace that is based on responsibility. There is big group that wanted this kind of peace. It showed us that there are partners in the other side.
See, I think there's also something else going on, because that line, you know, oh, there's no partners, is part of this whole like gaslighting thing. You know, it's part of this whole emotional manipulation. Like, oh, there's no partner. It's all their fault. We're fine. I'm fine. I've done my part. We have done our part. But the responsibility is them. They're the ones who don't have a part. Like, we hear this all the time in all kinds of different places, and it's part of the toxic rhetoric that accompanies the war. I mean, you know, it's not just the war. It's all this language that's used to justify the killing, and the whole, oh, there's no partner on the other side. On the other side, they're the problem. So I feel like what you're describing is part of the change, in the sense of people saying, I've had enough of the gaslighting. It's not just enough of the killing, it's also enough of the language that accompanies it. Like, I'm done with that. I mean, I'm speaking personally, you know,
As
I'm
Israeli,
done.
as
As an Israeli,
Israeli.
as someone who like grew up in all this. I mean, I really grew up in all of this BB language and all of these tactics and all. I grew up in it. I mean, I was totally engulfed in all of this. And I know, speaking for myself, like, I'm at a point where I am done. I am done with all of those toxic language things that I use to avoid responsibility and all the whataboutism. Like, I think part of what makes this different is the letting go of that. I know, I think it's not just me, but I can really only speak for myself, that, you know, there's a lot of whataboutism. There's a lot of, like, as soon as you start talking about things like what's happening in Gaza, it's like, well, but what about? Right? So when there were hostages, it was always like, you know, oh, but what about the
Not to
hostages?
take responsibility about what we are doing.
It's all
toward
toxic.
the other
And so
side.
for me, what I'm seeing different here, and this was the third one of these, and, you know, it's the third one since October 7th even, is, for me, I think that this, like, we're 3 years after October 7th at this point, and it's like, that's 3 years of the absolutely unbearable. It's just unbearable. And I think that I'm so just letting go of all of it. Like, I'm just, you know, khalas, really khalas.
You also want to bring your agency as Jewish Israelis, that you want to live with the Palestinian with peace, and you don't want all the time just to continue occupy or make war with them. You want to build partnership, real partnerships, as we do in the homeland, in all the land between the river and the sea, together, to live together
a little normalcy.
in peace.
Like, why can't we be normal people? The rest of the world understands what it means to have a diverse society. You can have a diverse society. You can have lots of different people living together who are just, you know, they have their different languages and their different culture and their different holidays, and everything is fine. But us, we're living with this government that is so tribalistic, racist, violent. It's so like we're past this, aren't we?
Yeah, where is this whole what Elana is sharing, Amira is taking you about?
Since she started talking, I totally agree with all what she said, but I have one comment, that this kind of language of there is no partner on the other side, this is not our language. This is the Israeli language.
Yes.
We never had this as Palestinians.
It
If
was-
you go, like, we don't say, oh, there is no sharik, or like, I never heard it in the street.
It was by
You know?
by Barak
Exactly.
after he came from negotiation, and it didn't succeed in 2000.
Yeah, so in the street here in Palestine, when you walk in the street and you ask the average person, Palestinian person, what he thinks about the other side, he says, we want an end to this. Khalas, we are tired. People are just tired.
Sure.
It doesn't mean we are forgetting or erasing the past and our pain and the people who were killed. Like, there are thousands of people living now with pain who lost the family members, lost their houses, lost their lands, lost, you know, it's not about only human beings, it's about everything else around you. People in the diaspora who were expelled in the 48 and so on. But still, people still believe that there should be a solution. Maybe they lost hope in any kind of solution, but it doesn't mean they don't see a peace coming. Not the same peace that they promised us 30 years ago, but a different kind of peace. A peace where we are partners together.
Yeah.
We are each one of us is taking
And
responsibility.
equal partners,
And
equal
also, yes, and I don't like, wait, the equal partners, I said it in publicly, but also I'm very also careful to say it all the time, because when we say equal, there is a lot of work to do before getting to equality. Because now if we say it, where is equality? There is nothing around us that is equal between me and you.
Yeah.
Just I have all the control. I have
You
all
have the
power.
privilege, you have the
I
power,
mean
you
equal
have...
partners in the decision making about things, and in power, equal partners in the power.
Exactly, we have to be
in deciding how the solution should be between the Palestinians and Israelis.
Yes.
I want a solution that will ensure liberation for Palestinians in their homeland, equality, collective equality for them, ensuring their self-determination, having their state. So this is what when I mean about equality of voicing their voice and taking into account when in the peace process, and their aspiration and rights are taken into account, and not imposing on them a peace process that sound a peace process, but it's serving the Israeli side, as it was also in Oslo Agreement, and in other processes that happening.
Yes, and on another thing other than partnership, that I feel that my people want to see a recognition of their pain from the other side.
Right.
You know, because we feel that I don't want to start comparing of numbers and how many were killed there, but more pain was done on one side more than the other. And I feel that my people want to see that empathy, that you know,
Responsibility.
And responsibility, and say, I am sorry. Just it's a very simple word, to look in the eyes and say, I am sorry. I am Habibti.
I am sorry. I am very deeply sorry for what my people have done to your people. I am so sorry. I'm just telling you.
Habibti, Elana. And you know, this phrase, Fakhira, it changed my life when I was 12 years old. When that American Jewish Israeli woman entered to my house. I was 12 and our house was partially bombed, and she came to do protective presence for us. And she was Israeli. And the moment she looked me in the eyes, I was just a little girl. She cried and told me, I am sorry for what my people are doing to you. And that changed my whole life.
Wow.
Just a simple word, I am sorry for what my people are doing to you, could change everything.
Yeah.
You know, show some responsibility, show some love, empathy with the other. I think it will change everything.
Yeah.
We have to stop being stubborn. No, you started. No, you started. Come on. Yeah. If we want to go back to history, we will never end this story. We will never end this genocide. We will never end this massacres. Nothing, any kind of like attack. There will be no security on either side. We have to start talking, first of all, about the present, how I feel. I am sorry. I take responsibility for my actions and for the actions of my people. And then find the solution. No, before finding the solution, come to the field. That's my invitation.
That's what you said, right.
Come to the field.
See what's happening.
See you don't want
to
be in the front line?
See in your eyes.
No problem. I don't want you to be in the front line. But you know, there is a lot of work in the back office. Sure. We need people for media. We need people for trauma and support. We need financial support. Nothing can be done on the ground without money. You know, so it's like, do some action, and then when we see the end of the occupation, then we'll talk about what kind of future we want. But before that, and to talk about, future, peace, okay. I don't think anybody don't want peace. Everyone wants peace. Every mother, at least, wants peace for her children, you know, for her children not to live the reality that we, as adults, lived, you know. And,
What Amira is saying, you know, you are taking me to a different, it's that we wanted the Israelis to see the occupation in real life. And we want them to see the power of the settlers and the violence of the settler that backed by the military and the state, and to take responsibility about the occupation and the settler violence, that it's part of the occupation. But somehow Israelis are not meeting Palestinians in the last 20 years. So somehow it's like the occupation is happening and the conflict continued to be managed, and they don't see the result. And once we want them to see the practice of the occupation, the oppression, the violence on the ground, and to take responsibility on that, because it's the responsibility of the Israeli people. We cannot say, and the government. But
that separation is such a tactic. It's such a tool for making sure that Israelis don't see it, don't
it's
know,
it's
don't
in
hear.
The background.
Can't even say the word occupation. In Israel, if you say the word occupation, people go,
that it's...
You can get like, you know, bans, you know, were fired for talking about the occupation. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that will go because it's very important. But also the issue, when I studied conflict resolution, I learned that the path to reconciliation, it's the apology part. And it's so important when people who done injustice for the other, or like what's happening now. Also, what happens in the pain that Palestinians and Israelis did for each other, and we know that the Palestinians are suffering in the daily manner. But we are not ignoring also what's happened in the 7th of October. But also the huge pain of the occupation, of the genocide. It's also a lot, and it might make a difference. And we know, like this, the apology, even just to say it sometimes, and that you feel the pain and you apologize, it can really make a turning point.
Yes.
And a turning point for Palestinians, you know, in the relationship. The question, how we allow this to happen, how we allow this apology to come from maybe both sides. But I mean, Palestinians wanted it also from the Jewish Israeli, because it's ongoing occupation in the last 70 years. It's ongoing structure of violence on them. So
it's such a, well, an apology is like such a human thing. You know, it's like part of your lives as like human beings, as opposed to, you know, objects or caricatures. You know, I've told the story before, but like, you know, I grew up in Brooklyn in a religious Zionist community and school, and we learned Zionism from 9th grade. And in our 9th grade Zionism class, you know, we were 14 years old, and we were taught everything you need to know about Palestinians, which is that Palestinians don't exist, they're not a nation, they are an invention, they don't have a culture, there's no such thing as Palestinian culture, and anytime Palestinians talk, they're lying. We learned about Deir Yassin, okay? None of us could pick out Deir Yassin on a map. None of us had heard the words Deir Yassin. All we learned that is, if you hear a Palestinian mention Deir Yassin, know that they're lying, right? Like that. So we were like, and what was,
you're listening.
But you don't understand, we're 14 years old, living in Brooklyn, New York. Many of us had never been to Israel. I happened to be in Israel the year before for the first time, right? But many kids there like had never been to Israel, didn't know anything about anything, but we knew enough that we knew better than Palestinians what Palestinians. We never even read a poem, you know, we never read a book. And I actually think about this a lot, because when we talk about occupation, I know that, you know, and I went on lots of tours when I decided like to let go of my culture and to start talking back to my culture and start thinking for myself, which was its own process. But when I did that, I did a lot of tours. I visited with like Yesh Din and with, with Nuzul Fund. I did a lot of tours with them, and I met people who had, you know, whose houses were demolished. We went to this tour of Walaja, and we met this guy who had like built these houses over and over again for his kids, and one after another kept getting demolished, how the wall was built, separating him from his orchards, and all kinds of things. We stood on Mount Scopus and we saw the apartheid roads. We saw literally, this is the road for Jews and this is the road for Palestinians. It was like nuts. So I did all that like self-educating kind of thing. And also I went to groups and I went to all kinds of women's, I did a lot of like women's.
So you saw the reality.
So I did all that. But
so
also, yes, I did, but it's really meeting people, right? First of all, it's meeting people and understand human beings. That's number one. And number two is I started reading books. So like, I remember, for example, I read a few books by Raja Shahida. You know, he's from Ramallah. He's originally from Jaffa, and his family was sent to Ramallah in 1948, or I want to say. And he wrote a whole bunch of books about occupation and about his family and all of that. And one of his books has the title, and I can't remember the name, but it's something like I think it was like 50 Days in the Occupation or something like that. And it was like a diary. And it was all about living under occupation. And like, I know I'm coming from the world where you can't say the word occupation out loud, because if you say it out loud, people will be like, what? How could you use that word? Like, literally, that's what happens, you know.
Or will they tell you, what about Hamas?
What about exactly
this?
the
what
about
is
is
the explosions in the 90s?
Right,
What about
right.
you shooting at Gilo in the 2000s?
Right.
But then, you know, then you end the conversation because, you know, it's
because we
just-
were trained to be gaslighters. Okay, that's how I said we were trained to be Bibi. You know,
Yeah.
when I was growing up, Bibi Netanyahu was the U.S. ambassador, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, and he spoke, you know, in this very like smooth, eloquent, slick English, and he was like charming, and he was good looking at the time or whatever. You know, it was the 1980s. But like we looked up at him, we were like, we want to be him. We were like getting trained to be him, and I look at that now, and I say we were trained to do all of this gaslighting. It's absolutely gaslighting. You know. Anyway, so I'm just saying that when I read Raja Shahida's books, it really flipped something for me in just using the word occupation and understanding what that is, you know. And so Israelis are like so unwilling to even go there. But these are the steps, in my opinion, that like really have to happen, is the humanization, is, you know, before, and I hear what you're saying about the apologies, and that's, I guess, why I apologize to you, because I feel that, you know, and I feel how important that is, and I do want to take responsibility, you know, and for my part in this, you know, I had a part in this, I have a part in this, I still do, you know, and so, you know, and I think that what really is so important is figuring out a way, for me, like my challenge ahead is to figure out how to get Israelis to like break out of that and to start to understand that Palestinians are human beings. I mean, it's really embarrassing to even say it because it's such a low bar, you know, to say, oh yes, Palestinians are human beings. It feels so like basic, and yet it's also the first step. And I feel like that's what has to come. It's like all of those steps of humanization, and then the solutions will appear.
will appear naturally.
Exactly.
Because we are just like in one homeland where we need to, at the end of the day, live together. Like we have to find the way. Like everybody else, like around the world, all the other countries where different religions, different this, different that, live together, and they can do it. Why here we can't do it? So, you know, at the end we will be able to do it. It's just that first steps that you are talking about. Humanization, taking responsibilities, the apology, and then...
Each time I hear you and I hear Amira, and each time that I hear you, you bring for me on the table all the hard things within the Israeli society, because I face it each day. The fascism, the dehumanization of the Palestinians, and it's, I mean, I didn't mean to, but it needed to have different like approaches, how we would really bring peace between Palestinians and Israelis, while Palestinians are in certain mindset out of this conflict. In certain mindset also, they are in the victim mindset, also angry, also out. The occupation did something for our mind by siege. It's like somehow the occupation and seeing the Israeli all the time supporting the occupation, supporting the genocide, all this definitely put the Palestinian as well in a limited mindset about what they can think with the Israelis, what they can envision with the Israelis. And it's also the conflict and the right-wing discourse, and also all the extreme government also shaped for Israelis a limited mindset and narrative what's possible with the Palestinians.
And it happens on an everyday basis. I mean,
Totally.
I don't know what it's
In the
like for you,
media.
but on the streets,
On the
in
streets.
cars, people
Yeah.
are so violent. There's so much
because
everyday
it became
violence.
a fascist society. I am sorry, but it's fascist society that it needs today certain approaches how we can really bring Palestinian and Israelis to work for peace. And I don't want to ignore what's happening in the Peace Summit, which gave us some light that there is a new kind of partnership or a new conversation about peace that's going on there, that it's not ignoring the reality of the occupation, the oppression, that what's happening. It's not ignoring all this pain and inequality and all these structures, okay, that's happening, and talking honestly about what's needed to be happen. But it needs also, it needs courage. It's not easy to work for peace these days. Also for me as Palestinian, because
Must be complicated for you.
It's not, it's for you and for me, and especially for me, because after and we return, I mean, we are talking about a lot of processes, and it's not so much easy to do peace building in the current reality in Israel-Palestine, and it demands a lot of courage by Palestinians and by Israelis, and it demands us to move to a different attitude and listening to the other, and different conversation about what's possible with the other side, okay? All the issue of there is no partner in the other side, even if the collective of the Israelis support the occupation, but there are certain people that are now standing with the Palestinian and do not want to see the occupation and stand with the Palestinian in their struggle. So after I watched this peace summit, I was so moved, and the day after I wanted so there was like with me a need to send my Palestinian partners in the West Bank a message to let them know about this summit, and to tell them, I want to bring you a light in your heart. Despite the hard reality that you live in, there are some Israelis in Israel that want peace with you, and they are not a small group of people, they are a big group of people. I wanted them to know that there is a partner at the other side. I was afraid that they will think I am cynical, that I am cynical because their life continue to be under occupation. They continue to be killed by settlers. They continue to have the army get into their homes at night and dehumanizing their fathers. So I was afraid that they will say, Fakhira, it doesn't say anything for me, this summit that happened. You know, I wanted to write something about it, but I was afraid that I am giving so much hope that it's not the reality. I want to see this conversation about peace growing and shaped, and do not give up the right terminology, what peace means. And I want more people, Israelis and Palestinian, to stand taking responsibility and commitment to shape it in a certain way that will allow Palestinians to see that there is a partner in the other side, and to believe on that, and to allow them to bring their agency, as you, Amira, brought. Okay, so I am between in the space between skepticism about what's happening, this evolution of a peace building community, and between allowing myself to embrace it and bring my agency, and to allow maybe Palestinian to have hope that there is something evolving, something different, evolving also in Israel. A new conversation about peace, new young people that want to stand with them against the oppression, and they will not allow it not to be on the table.
I think the best thing on how to bring it to the Palestinian people, and I think how we will accept talking about peace, and is when we stop talking about coexistence, because we can coexist. We will have.
Don't use it anymore.
We won't have a problem to coexist. I don't think we will. Not I don't. I'm sure there is no problem to coexist. Now we have to bring in the word that I love using it, and in protective presence, that what exactly we do is co-resistance.
Yes.
The co-resistance is what brings hope to people. When I see an Israeli man or woman standing with me in the field, in the face of the settlers or the IDF or the police or whatever, and they are even getting the hit on behalf of me, that's where I will say, yes, I will put my hand in your hands, and I will think for it. But I will fight with you for a better future for both of us. I will go to talk to my community. But before that, I can't, because my people will tell me, oh, but you know, they are doing this for their own sake, to feel good about themselves. But if we do co-resist together, and we see them in the field, and they are going and stopping the army from whatever they are doing, and stopping this from, you know, that's where I see the hope, and I see the space for a conversation for a better future. That's
to unite around common values, values that people refuse to accept oppression, refuse to accept inequality, violence, they refuse it and they are committed to something together. I guess this is the shared values of Palestinians and Israelis together, and not around just around our nationality.
Exactly.
Shared values in the homeland.
Yes, exactly.
definitely.
Beautiful.
Do you want to say something,
No,
Elana,
that's
before
good.
we...
I love that, and it's instead of viewing the world as like, the nations,
Two
like us versus
nationalities.
you divide the world between people who believe in humanity and empathy and nonviolence and equality and justice, and the rest of the world who doesn't, who believes in violence and, us versus them, and who believes in walls and force and all of that. So, yeah.
We are sharing the homeland, and we want to create a common principles to
Yes.
allow us to live
Yalla.
together.
Yalla, each
Yalla.
one from
In
her,
peace and
her
dignity.
space.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Inshallah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very
Thank
much
you. This was
for
so
this
nice.
beautiful space.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you so
watching
much.
this episode.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful women.
Thanks for listening to Women Ending War. If you want to help create change, you should join us.
Subscribe, like, comment, or share. Tell your friends about us. Talk about it. Be part of the solution.
Thanks, and see you next time.